Hello and welcome into the RotoWire Esports Show. I am Andrew Laird, joined as always by Ethan Sexton, this time to talk about Thursday's four-game League of Legends slate on DraftKings. Ethan, we had our first four-game slate today, already some shenanigans. We thought we'd be okay. We got very quickly reminded about the LCK lineup issues that can come about. I had one lineup that would have likely saved my entire day, except for the big fat zero in it. But I was trying to talk to some people about it because they were like, oh, I guess I'm going to have to stay up. But you reminded me like it didn't even matter because it was in the second game anyway, the second LCK game. So even if you knew an hour before that one, it was way too late since there's no late swap anyway. So I don't know if that it definitely made me feel better, which is weird because it was like I still had the zero and everything. But
right.
It is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, I'm friends with some guys that work for other companies in the scene that I've known for a long time, like way before League blew up last year. And like there was some scuttlebutt about T1 starting lineup, I guess, before lineup block, but that's at like 2 a.m. East Coast, and I was sleeping. So, it's my own fault. You know what I mean? I could have set an alarm for like 2 o'clock or 2:30 and woke up and browsed Twitter and looked around. But even still, it was just a rumored lineup. Nothing was really concrete until it got announced before their series, which was after lineup block. And it was kind of weird because, like I said yesterday, I really thought at least like Teddy. The most surprising one to me is Teddy.
Yeah.
Because even when T1 were doing a lot of lineup swaps last year, he pretty much played every single series. So that was the most surprising one to me. But I was surprised that Faker, didn't. I'm just surprised they didn't let him start the season because of how much, notoriety he just has around the world and just his history as a player. I was surprised by that, but just the Teddy one was really surprising just because even when they were swapping around last year, he still played most of the games, but they didn't need those guys. They ended up winning 2-1 anyway, and, I guess we're going to have to assume that this is their lineup going forward, but it's going to be a little bit of a crapshoot every time there's LCK slates, especially with teams that have 10-man lineups like T1 and a couple others do.
There was nothing worse than like hoping they got absolutely blasted in the first game so that he would come in, just like hoping for that. But it was also one of those that like I actually think I woke up after that started and I saw the zero and I'm like, this can't be good. And I looked in and I saw that he was 15% owned. So I'm like, oh, maybe stats aren't updating. And then I went into our Discord and it was very clear that he was not starting. So
yeah, Teddy was my captain in my main lineup, and I used Faker in my main lineup as well. So my lineups were just dead on arrival, unfortunately. So and that's without even talking about that IG. The biggest favorites got destroyed 2-0 by LNG, and we said that wouldn't have been the craziest thing yesterday, but I didn't play LNG anywhere. I didn't play IG anywhere either. But I didn't see them getting swept by LNG. So today was a pretty crappy slate, guys. So we're just gonna move on to tomorrow, I think.
I think we have to remember that, like, I feel like people overreact to upsets happening in League of Legends. And I felt it more, at least in the spring when everyone was very new to it. I was very new to it. And it was kind of like, how does this team lose, blah, blah, blah. But like the Jaguars won in week 1 this year. Like the Jets won late season games. Like this happens in every sport. So like we can't look at upset. I think it's the fact that the slates are smaller. It's not like a 12-game NFL slate. So like the upsets at least stand out a little more, but like betting odds and favorites like are not guaranteed, and we just have to play into that.
I think to your point, like upsets happen in all these other sports. Like look at Aston Villa destroyed Liverpool 7-2 this year, right? But the difference with league is like if your team loses, you're screwed.
Right.
Like in soccer or in football, like your running back can be on a team that loses, but if he scores 3 touchdowns. Who cares, right? It doesn't matter. Your players still did good. Whereas in league, if your team loses, not always, but pretty much all the time, if the player loses, if you're using a stack and that team loses, your players aren't going to score very well. So I think that makes it stand out a little more for league too.
Of course, we say that a day after a game stack won the.
True.
So, but anyway, we look to Thursday morning at least. Another 2 games for each. We've got some. I feel like it's the same story for for every slate. Like the LPL games are expected to be much bloodier and probably should have more fantasy points. They're the two biggest favorites: JDG over BLG, and then Suning over RNG. But from a few things that I've seen online, it seems like that Suning game could be a ripe for an upset, at least of the two LPL ones. Do you read it that way as well?
Yeah, I think so. I would give RNG a pretty good shot to win that series. RNG and Suning should be two teams that end up being in the playoffs. Competitively wise, you would think this would be actually a pretty close series. So taking a stab with RNG really isn't crazy to me at all. The main reason that I think I'm leaning Suning, but wouldn't be surprised either way. But the main reason is because I think that Huan Feng is a huge difference maker against Gala. I think that's the biggest mismatch in that series. So that is a huge one in Suning's favor, as well as the fact that Bin has just been an absolute monster in the top lane dating back to last summer split last season and through the World Championships, and RNG with Xiaohu, a guy that's switched up there from being a mid laner and is still, he's a good enough player that he knows the role, but when he's going up against a guy like Bin, I think that could end up being another huge advantage spot for Suning. So those two things kind of push me to the Suning side, but I have an RNG lineup because if they won, it wouldn't surprise me. I do think RNG are a good team, built specifically around, Wei and Cryan's synergy that we talked about the other day. Ming is one of the best supports, and Xiaohu should continue to get better in the top lane. He was always a good and serviceable mid laner, and top lane isn't quite as intensive a role as mid lane. So I think he'll continue to get better. It's just, will it be enough tomorrow? I'm not sure. So I would lean Suning, but I think that's a really close series going into tomorrow.
Yeah, they're Suning's the second biggest favorite. JDG the biggest.
Right. JDG though, do you trust them after how they got stomped by IG the other day? I mean, that's what you kind of got to wonder too. And BLG looked really good in their series. I think it's a good get-right spot for JDG.
Yeah.
I like that they brought Yagao back. I think Yagao is just a better player than GA at this point in their respective careers. But again, that series, I wouldn't be shocked if BLG won that series either. But I'm not gonna lean that way. I do think that series could be a bit slower. Historically, both those teams play at a little bit of a slower pace than a lot of the other LPL teams. So that one might not have as many kills as a few of these other series. But that one's closer than maybe it looks on paper too, because JDG didn't look great at all in their first series, and BLG looked pretty good. But I would still lean JDG slightly for that one, especially with the Yagao coming back in.
Yeah, in terms of just kill props, like the Suning's the top one, followed by JDG. I mean, obviously the LPL ones tend to be that way. So do you think it's more, I mean, obviously they're favorites, but like, do you think because it's a 4-game slate and you can kind of go a lot of different ways, do you think more people will take one of those favorites and then one of the LPL underdogs? Or do you think they could, I mean, not many people are going to try to play BLG, RNG. And you can't play JDG Suning.
Right.
At least with like a reasonable captain. So do you think it's just like one of these, or do you think people end up going with the LCK sides? And those matchups are supposed to be pretty, relatively tight.
Yeah, I think it'll be a mixed bag. Historically, people look to stack the LPL games because they've always been, faster paced and higher kill totals historically. But the LCK caught up last summer, like we've kind of alluded to a couple times when we've been talking. So I think it'll kind of be a mixed bag. And those LCK series are both looking extremely tight. So we said the LPL series, could potentially go either way, but those LCK games are even more, closely knitted together. So it's tomorrow's a tough slate, really, because there's no clear favorite in either LCK series. I wouldn't say. I'm not crazy about any of these teams really on the LCK side. Like Afrika Africa, have been that kind of gatekeeper team where they're usually like the last team in the playoffs the last couple of years, and then they lose in the first round. But their lineup is just not that inspiring this year. Like, they have Keane in the top lane, who's an absolute beast, one of the best top laners in the league, and then they have Dredd, who's been on the team and is a solid jungler, probably a little above average, I would say, jungler. But then Fly and Bang are two players that are veterans, been around a long time. They don't inspire a lot of awe these days. Bang is coming back from playing in North America the last 2 years, and I don't know. I mean, North America's a way weaker league, and he wasn't performing that great in North America.
Great.
Could have been the teams he was on. But I'm not like inspired with a lot of confidence with him going back to Korea. But he has historically been a great player, world champion, all those things. But that part of their lineup doesn't really fill me with a lot of confidence. But they're going up against this DRX team tomorrow that has 3 rookies, including a rookie mid laner, and then their AD carry and support are both rookies as well. So are they the people that are going to push guys like Fly and Bang? I'm not sure. So that's a tough consideration for tomorrow. The one I do think DRX have a big jungle gap going in. They're building around Piosik, who was a rookie last year and was a really good player. He was one of the better junglers in the league last year. They're building around him, and then they brought in Kingen from BLG in China, and he's a decent, solid average top laner. So both teams have spots that are worrying. That series in particular is a really hard one to judge, in my opinion.
It seems like it's probably going to be the slowest of the 4 too, right?
Yeah, and plus it's just, there's a lot of risk with that one, which maybe that means people won't go there. So if you can pick the side right and it hits, then you're going to have some differential potentially. But it's going to be a tall ask that, the game is played at a strong, fast pace with a lot of kills, and that you also get the right side, and that you also get the right players from that team. It's a lot to ask for that one. It's a good, like, coin flip series, because it's neither team is that inspiring, and they both have parts of their lineup where they're really strong and parts of their lineup where there's some question marks. So that one's a really hard one to decipher for tomorrow. And then, the Sandbox NS Red Force series is also kind of like that, because the Sandbox team was kind of uninspiring and ended up being pretty poor last year. But when they first came into the league, they were a very good team.
Mm-hmm.
They were up there with Damwon, because they both came into the league at the same time, and they were filled with all these rookies. In their first year in the league, Sandbox was quite a good organization, in competition with a lot of these better teams, but they really fell off last year. But they have a lot of the same pieces back. They did bring in Effort from T1, which is an upgrade in the support role. And then Onfleek got suspended for 3 games, and he's inactive right now. So we're going to see this Krakow guy in the jungle. And he's a highly touted prospect from everything that I've read and seen. I haven't actually seen him play, but he's apparently a very highly touted prospect, and he was very good in the Kespa Cup for Sandbox. He was talking about him today with a couple guys I know. They mentioned that he was always very high up there in the kill participation in the Kespa Cup. So, that makes him seem like he's going to be a solid player, maybe right out of the gate here. And the rest of their lineup isn't awful. So I kind of like that Sandbox team, and at the same time I kind of like this NS Red Force team.
Yeah.
Who brought in Peanut from the LPL, but he's a veteran of the LCK, and he's an explosive player, coin flip kind of guy that's very aggressive, and can help kind of these younger players improve. But I thought Rich was good last year, and Doc Dom, their AD carry, was a good player last year, even though they were a pretty poor team. And then they brought in Bay, who is a highly touted prospect in the mid lane, and they brought in Kellen to be their support. So they have a solid lineup too.
Decent,
both of these teams are like, if everything clicks right, they could be fighting for playoff spots. But it's just really hard. Like, that series is really hard to predict as well. But I think that one could be a little more up tempo than the other LCK series. So I wouldn't mind playing both sides of that in lineups and just trying to hit on the right side. If you're doing multi-entry and things of that nature. But both these LCK, I mean, this slate's a good one in that sense, because there's really no slam dunk clear way to go. I mean, I think Suning is probably going to be the most popular team, and I think that because they looked so good in their first series, crushing top esports. And I also think, even though they're expensive, you can fit them with a lot of these underdogs who have a good shot at winning potentially. So I think Suning still ends up probably being the most popular. Maybe JDG because they're, actually the biggest favorites on the slate. But, like we said, JDG really weren't very inspiring in their first series. So I don't know. It's an interesting slate, honestly. So it's a good one to kind of put the puzzle together and figure out.
Yeah, the JDG prices are pretty high.
Yep.
I mean, Suning's actually pretty expensive too, so I'm not sure you're getting them with Red Force at all.
Right.
But maybe you don't. I mean, yeah, I don't know how you split that one unless you end up going to another. You go to another LCK favorite, I guess. But I guess Jungler Captain probably works there. So do you think a lot of people stay away from that second LCK game after getting burned today? Or should they just stay away from it anyway?
Maybe, it's just a tough one to figure out. I think that those lineups aren't as bad, though, because in this sense, T1 has a 10-man roster, so it's very confusing, and they showed a propensity last year to be willing to swap guys in and out all the time. So they're going to be tough again all year, probably, it looks like. But for tomorrow, I think I'm pretty confident that DRX will start kinging in the top lane over Destroy, and then fly in the mid lane for Afrika, even though he's priced lower than Kenny, whatever. I forget how to pronounce his name, but I'm going to guess that it's going to be Fly, but that one's probably the trickiest spot for that series as far as, predicting the lineup. And really, neither one of those mid laners I would really go out of my way to play, so hopefully it's not too big a deal.
Yeah, I guess we just kind of ignore them because we'd rather just ignore them. Even if we knew who they were playing, who was starting, we'd probably ignore them anyway.
Yeah. I'm not real excited about either one, I'll tell you that.
I have a feeling this is going to be the beginning of me constantly losing with RNG, but not actually learning my lesson at all.
Well, I wouldn't blame you for going there, though, because I really do think they're a live dog, and they're cheap, and I think they should be a good team. So, I mean, I can't fault anyone for going RNG, even though Suning, like I said, it's just the concerns for me in that series are just that Suning have a way better AD carry and a way better top laner, and then the rest of their team just isn't at such a massive discount or difference from what RNG can put out there that Angel can hang with Cryan, SOFM can definitely hang with Wei. On looks like he's going to be able to hang with some better supports in this league. So I just think that the two big different spots in that series are just Huanfeng is way better than Gala, and Bin is way better than Zhao at this point in his top lane journey. So I just think that's how Suning probably ends up getting it done. But like I said, it wouldn't shock me at all if RNG took that series. And honestly, tomorrow we'll probably see some sweeps, but it wouldn't shock me if all four of these series are 2-1s either, just because I do think they're all fairly close.
Yeah, for sure. The way that it feels it's been going since they're all close, getting 4-2-2-0s probably ends up happening. That's how I'm starting to feel now that we're 4 days in. Yeah, the lineup building should be fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to go, that's for sure. So that's good. I mean, it's going to spread out lineups and all that stuff. So hopefully, it's just getting on the right combination is going to be tricky. But that's why I'd recommend doing a couple lineups if you can afford it, and going that way. But there's a lot of decisions that need to be made, and just makes it more interesting, So it's not a bad thing.
I envy people who can make one lineup in League of Legends and be okay with it.
Yeah, me too, man.
All right. If you enjoyed this video, if you could just hit the like button below, they very helpful for getting people to find this video as well. If you feel free to subscribe as well, that button is below as well. We also have links in the description for how to play League of Legends DFS. If you're just trying to get into it now, there's also a link down below for all of the expected and confirmed lineups, which you'll need to build your lineups. So, Ethan, thank you for all that, and good luck on Thursday.
Yep. Thanks, man. You too.